Hi, Les.
Hi.
Okay, hi everyone. Just give the rest of the folks maybe a couple minutes to log in.
Huh.
Everybody who's joined, we're just gonna give folks another minute or so. I think from the council side, we are only missing Rob. Let's see. Who do we have? Oh, and Mike. Okay.
I'm gonna go make my tea.
Okay.
That was such an exhausting, creative, intellectual meeting that I needed to go get a piece of chocolate so I can participate in this one. The chair of our committee deserves great credit for his skill, charm, grace, and whatever else he'd like to hear about himself. He did a great job.
He speaks so softly and gently to those folks, they never know that we're actually being critical.
Hey, these folks are on the meeting right now here, Makala. Come on. So.
Oh, it's a good thing. It's a very good thing. I love transparency.
No. Yeah, this is a good way to do it. I think we get more attendance on Zoom than we
I completely agree. I completely
we
agree.
did in person. Yeah.
We've been worried about how to engage and do outreach and so forth, but I gotta say, we've had a couple of government meetings and we've had 100 plus on the call. It's great.
Yeah. There's Rob.
Oh, and Mike's on too. Great. Okay, we'll let their audio connect and then we'll get started in just a second.
We had a community meeting, a Zoom meeting when COVID hit Lanai finally, unfortunately. And the first meeting had 300 people online and the second meeting had 450, which is 15% of our island's population. I mean, and that never happens at a public meeting. So it was great.
And for us, when we're doing those kinds of huge meetings, which we almost never have to, it's so cordial. It's so respectful. It's so everybody take turns. We never do that.
That's because Ron managed the meeting, that's all.
All right, folks, looks like everybody's here. I'm gonna get started. It's 1:06 p.m. on Tuesday, November 10th. Thanks everybody for joining. I'll just do a quick roll call of the council members who are present. Like I said, I'm Onaunathon, the chair. Also with us today is the vice chair, Mary Bashir, and members Roy Abe, Stephanie Dunbar Cole, Maka'ala Ka'omoana, Keith Kalaoka, Robin Kay, Tessie Kinnaman, Rob Parsons, Ron Terry, Mike Tulang, and Mahina Tudor. From OEQC, we have Les Segundo, and we have our AG Bill Cooper with us as well. We also have several agency folks. So if I can go ahead and start with maybe DLM, you can go first. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, this is Seiji Ogawa from Department of Land Management. I believe Claude Allen is from our office and Sandra Fund. Earlier, she was having some audio issues. We'll see if she can tune in or not.
All right. Thanks, Seiji, for introducing. And then CWorm, if you folks want to go ahead and introduce yourselves.
Aloha, I'm Lenore Owe from the Water Commission.
Yeah, and I'm Nicholas Ng with the Water Commission.
Good afternoon, Neil Fujii, also with the Water Commission. Thanks.
Good afternoon. This is Jeremy Kimura, also with the Water Commission.
All right. I think we have everybody. Thanks so much for introducing yourselves to our members of the public. All right. So we do have quorum. Moving forward, Les, how are we doing on meeting minutes?
Sorry, still backlogged on those. Got to get those done before the end of the year, though.
Thank you. And welcome back from vacation. We know you were gone for a bit, so
Yeah,
hope you had a good time.
Yes, thank you.
All right, moving on to the third agenda item, to Keith, if you can go ahead and give us the OEQC Director's report.
Good afternoon, everybody. Just want to touch upon several different things. We're heading into the biennial sessions, just coming around the corner in January. I think I told the council the last meeting department submitted restrained budgets all the way up to like a 20% reduction. We just learned, it's nothing new that you haven't heard in the news, that because of the anticipated budget shortfalls, it's anywhere between $1.5 billion per year for the next 4 years, and a 25% reduction in the general funds for the next 6 years. Governor is anticipating employing a work furlough for the next 6 years to make up some of the $6 to $9 billion shortfall. And we're looking at least at this stage, a 2-day per month furlough of general funded personnel, which includes the Office of Environmental Quality Control. So it equates to about a 9+% decrease. Other method of funding like special funds and federal funds are exempt so far from this furlough, as well as personnel that are 24/7 emergency responders type of staff. As far as UH or DOE, as you know, they're on an academic schedule, so they may work on a different type of furlough schedule. Yeah, so I think Gov's office will probably announce it in the next few days. I think they're still talking with the various collective bargaining units. And as far as the next legislative session, we anticipate going virtual again. So it's somewhat limited by the access we have as far as committee meetings and all that. But at this point, that's what we're assuming anyway. The legislative committee assignments have been made. As far as the environmental, that has not changed. The Senate is still Senator Gabbard, and the House is Nicole Lowen. As far as the COVID response from the department standpoint, we're heavily engaged in dealing with the Safe Travels programs that was instituted last month, as well as anticipated the vaccine distribution program, which is coming sooner than everybody thinks. So that's all I have. Any questions?
None for me right now. Any other members? Questions for Keith?
Yeah, hi, Keith. This is Bill Cooper, the Deputy AG. I just have a question. And are you gathering any legislative proposals from your clients or OEQC at all at this time?
There's a few that, none from Environmental Health Administration, but other departments, other parts of the department have been putting together admin bill proposals.
Because of the issue that we just had with 343-5 subsection E and the appeals from a denial of an EIS or FEIS, and the issue of 30 days in order to get a response back. That's an area that I believe the council had been discussing about having the legislature take a look at, if anything. Anyway, I just thought I'd put that out there. I don't know if anybody else wants to comment on that as well.
Yeah, Bill, I think that's something that, as a council, we should probably discuss. And apologies, I did not include that particular agenda item for this meeting. So I think what I'll recommend is maybe we can have legislative committee meet in December, Robin, if you think that's appropriate, to talk about any proposals for changes to 343 that we'd like to make to legislature. And then we can discuss it with the full council at the December meeting.
That's fine with me. I have a question. Unfortunately, I think I have an answer in my brain already, but Keith, any thinking within the department, your department, about a director for us?
Nothing's really happened. As I think I told the council from last session, not just this positions, but all the positions, at least the positions were maintained, but the budgets were swept away. So that's no different for the OAQC position. But as far as that's the key, is to find the funding for this position. And right now, all the positions, budgets were taken away. So yeah, we can't really move on that. That's why, for Kathy, she's elected to either be on hold or just wait for a better time, whenever that is. Okay. That's the best answer I can give you, Robin.
Yeah, I didn't expect anything else, but I just wanted to hear it from you, if you will. So thank you.
Like your article, by the way.
Thank you.
Ron, you had something?
I did, yeah. Keith, this is going to sound wild. It's not QAnon, but may sound close. I've heard some talk about getting rid of Chapter 343 in order to save state money and burdens on the economic activity of the state. Are you hearing anything like that?
I have not. I don't know. It's because of just, like what Bill brought up, which we'll discuss later in the session. But, as far as from the budgeting standpoint, we're not sure what specific programs may be curtailed or even eliminated. So
the governor's asking for people to bring specific statutes forward that can be radically altered or eliminated. Isn't that correct?
I'm not sure about that. I have not heard that.
Okay.
Was that in a press release or anything, Ron? Because I would just be
no.
knowing the source of that.
No, that's deep state stuff there. So.
Okay, good to know. All right. Does anybody else have any questions for Keith? Members of the public? No. All right. Well, thank you, Keith, for that update. Oh, sorry, Mary, go ahead.
Just kind of being more creative in our thoughts, but since the governor is asking for people to say, how can we save money? And can't we how can we pass a law or whatever to accommodate that? I mean, the state's already paying Kathy. And so to move her money, the money that pays her at the Department of Health or the AG's office, wherever it is she is, and move her to OEQC, move that money with her. Because that's the logjam, is that she doesn't want to impact her retirement and not doesn't want to go without a paycheck. I don't blame her. But, you know, it's time to, this agency needs to stop not being properly led. And I no disrespect to you, but it's not, this isn't your Kuleana, you know. We need someone whose Kuleana it is. So I just wondered about
Yeah, you know, sort of get bureaucratic on you, but as far as where Kathy is now in the AG office, she's what they call the special funded position, and it's funded from a specific program that she supports, the Environmental Response Fund. So to take that funding, I think that's what you're alluding to, and move it to OEQC. I mean, that'll put the AG's office without that funding. And yeah,
what special project is it that she's funded by?
it's from the Environmental Response Revolving Fund. It's the barrel tax.
Okay.
So it's a special fund overall,
Right.
and she would be coming to what they call a general funded position. So, you know,
Okay.
yeah, it
I
involves,
understand what you're saying.
yeah.
Yeah. So we have to be even more creative.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, folks. Any other questions? Are we ready to move on? All right. Thanks again, Keith, for keeping us updated on that. All right, I'm going to hand it over then to Ron for the exemption committee update, and there are several action items for the council under this.
Right. Let's see, what do I do with it? Here we go. Okay, so you see, yeah, we have 5 items in here. One's just a discussion, and we can wait till the end for that. But 4 action items, and all of these action items were discussed at the exemption committee beforehand in a rapid fire discussion, and each of them passed the exemption committee unanimously. The recommendations for all agencies to, for 3 agencies for 2 to be distributed to the public in the next available OEQC environmental notice, and for 2 to be concurred with. 1 we had already concurred with. So all of these lists were available on your agendas if you wanted to look at them. I hope some of you at least got a chance to look at them, and are completely relying on your committee for our diligence and thorough review. But I do want to emphasize they were passed unanimously. I'd like to probably first, we have a lot of representatives from the agencies here, but I don't know if they want to say anything at this point. Maybe ask the committee members first if you have any questions. Council members, excuse me. Nothing? Okay. Would there be would it be okay to take these on block and have vote all of them out, since there don't seem to be any comments from anybody about these?
Ron, I think, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to move that.
Okay, is there a second? Robin? Okay, I'll open that up for discussion. Oh, no?
No, I actually thought it would be helpful to go through each one individually for the council members, but if folks are comfortable with, I'm in the exemption committee, I've reviewed this stuff. We've already made recommendations. That's fine, but yeah, I'll refer to the council.
I guess if no one was planning to say anything about any of the items, I thought I'd just remove that. If there are any comments on any of them, then perhaps that's not appropriate. But if we're not going to have any discussion on any of the items, I don't see the point of doing them one at a time.
Yeah, I think my point was I don't propose to have any further discussion on these items. We've discussed about them in committee, but the action for, you know, 2 of them, I believe, are to release for public comment versus, you know, concurring and whatnot. And I was thinking that it would be helpful just for, you know, the rest of the council members, you know, to everybody voting, just being aware of what exactly you're voting for. So
okay,
I think we can split that in block, maybe just, you know, go through each of the 4 that we're voting on quickly, and we can just do one vote so folks understand which ones are going out for public comment versus being, you know, our concurrence.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're the boss because this is your meeting now, so.
I would appreciate that, Winona.
I would agree. I think just a 1 sentence for each one of the applications would be helpful, Ron. So I would just walk through each of those 4 bullet points and say what we're putting on, and that's it.
Just quickly, it doesn't have to, and then it can be one vote. I'm comfortable with that as long as folks there's a quick description.
Okay. Then I guess we're sticking with the original motion there, but just making sure to get a little more out there. Yeah, I'll be happy to do that. Okay. We'll go through them in the order they're on here. Then the Department of Public Works.
Point of order. Isn't the motion on the floor to group them together right now?
We're still doing that, I understand. But we're just going to have discussion.
This is part of the discussion on that motion?
No, yeah, it's a discussion on that motion. Right.
Thank you.
I think.
Yes, that's right.
Okay. Sorry, it's a little confusing. I can't seem to find a way to mute my other phone here. I'm so sorry, it keeps ringing. One guy really wants to talk to me. The first one is the Department of Public Works, and what they're coming to us for is a public comment period. I have worked with them for the last 4 months on their list, and they have an approved list from 2015. They simply reorganizing it, and it's but they took advantage to consolidate some actions and make things a little bit clearer. I think we dealt with a lot of Manini issues, I think. I would say that their list, if anybody looked at it carefully, preserved many of their exemptions in the type 2, in the part 2, excuse me, in the part 2. They're very judicious in their use of part 1 exemptions. The City and County of Honolulu Department of Land and Management exemption list, what we're proposing to do here is to concur with this list. It went out for public comment in, I believe, September. Right, Les?
Yes.
September, right. And so it had the 15-day nominal comment period, but we don't close the comment period because it's not statutory. And since that time, we've had no comments. And there were no comments from any members at the exemption committee. So we're asking the council to consider concurrence with this list. The DLNR list has been to us before. We have concurred on it once before, but they came back to us because the structure of their list, unbeknownst to our tired eyes, I guess, had preserved the structure of the old rules. They had changed things from part 1 to part 2, but they hadn't changed the classes into types. And there's even different numbers for all the classes versus types. They hadn't done that. They went ahead and did it. They came back again, and we had a number of questions this time on the list. And they responded to those questions and said that they would prefer to keep it the way they had it. And we had a long discussion and decided that that was okay. It was up to them. They could do it. We did. Maka'ala in particular indicated to them that everybody is watching the actions that will restore beaches, sand restoration of beaches, and also silt removal. And so we cautioned them to be careful, judicious in their use of exemptions, and particularly in the use of Part 1 exemptions and de minimis for activities that will affect streams and raise public inquiry. And they assured us that they would do this, and I believe they will. And finally, we had the Commission on Water Resources Management list. This is for a release for public comment. And this list doesn't have any applicant actions. And I had some questions about that, but after discussing it with the commission, it appeared that they had thought it through very carefully, and that the applicant 343 actions before the commission are extremely rare. All the applicant actions that come before them have already complied with Chapter 343 through their passage through other agencies. And they have not experienced a need to do Chapter 343 for applicant actions. So they feel comfortable not having any applicant actions on their list. They are, of course, always able to avail themselves of the list of the exemption process specified in our rules, which after all is the complete and total legal basis for all exemptions. The exemption lists themselves are simply for the convenience of the agency and public. I had some more questions about whether they might need some more Part 2. And I continue to have these questions, and we raised them and we brought them up, but I think that I'll bring them up again in some more detail during the public comment period. And we had a fruitful dialogue back and forth. I don't think we decided anything, but the committee felt unanimously that it was appropriate to have this go out for public comment. I wish you all could have been there. It was fun.
Thanks, Ron, for taking the additional time to just give, a brief rundown on the 4 items that are within this motion for action.
Now, obviously, if someone wanted to remove one of these or more, one or more of these from the group, that would be appropriate at this time. But if not, we could continue with the motion as it was, right, Onama?
Right, Maka'ala has a comment.
Thank you, Chair. I don't want to remove any of them from the group and from the vote, but I did want to note that myself and Onauna and Chair Terry all noted that there were some of this discussion that was very valuable in new information for us, things we didn't know before. And if for no other reason, these exemption discussions are interesting and valuable for members of the community who are seeing things like boring wells being sealed and wondering, what that is and what that looks like. And so I'm hoping that this discussion also fosters some comfortable continuing conversations. I, for one, am going to ask CWIRM for a little bit more. Maybe there's a one-pager on that. And learning new stuff is a good thing. The most important thing for me was to hear about the new river gauge device. I certainly will be checking on that because we've been experiencing what we perceive to be different gauge reporting. And we've been told it's not different, but it sure looks different to us. So maybe this new device is the reason for that. And so on behalf of at least our North Shore community, thank you very much for explaining that to me. I learned a lot.
Lenore, go ahead.
I just wanted to thank you for your interest in that. And we did have a really good briefing by the U.S. Geological Survey on their stream gauging. And we'd be happy to send that to you if you'd like to peruse that. Okay, I will work with Nicholas to get it to the to Ron, and he can distribute to everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah, Ron, when you get that, you can go ahead and send it to Les, and then Les can distribute to the council members. Okay, great. Thank you. All right. Is there anybody else from the council who has any questions on the motion? Okay.
And Onan, I don't know if you want to ask if there's any agency folks who want to say anything.
Mhm. Yeah, and anybody from, I think we still have the folks from CWRM on, and also from DLM. Do you folks have anything to add before the council takes this up?
I just wanted to thank the council and the committee for their time and consideration. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Lenore.
Hi, this is Seiji from DLM. I also wanted to thank the council for the time and consideration, especially Ron Terry for taking a lot of time to correct our list multiple times. Thank you.
Thank you, Seiji. Okay, folks, so I think we're good on discussion. So we do again have the motion on the floor, and I won't repeat it. We're doing one vote for the 4 items that Ron, painstakingly went ahead and, explained in great detail. So thank you again, Ron. I'll just say I'll go ahead and call the question. All those in favor, say aye. Okay.
Aye.
Okay. Do we have any opposed? Wait, Tessie, are you okay? All right, and any abstentions? Okay, and then Roy, did you vote aye on it? I couldn't see your hand.
Oh, yes,
So
I did.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's all right.
I put my hand down.
Okay, so the motion passed unanimously. Thank you very much, folks. And again, thank you very much to everybody from CRM and DLM that are on the call. And I know we have some folks from DPW and DLNR that weren't able to join us for this. So Ron will be in touch with you folks, for the different stages that you're in and what comes next, essentially. And we'll let you know when that will happen. I believe, so for the folks going to public comment, so DPW and CWRM, I think the public, are they going to be within our next meeting? Probably not, right? So probably not till January. We'll see them again. Oh, Ron, you're on mute.
It'll probably be next year.
Okay.
Yeah, I think when's it, we can get it in the, especially because we're so late. I think we can make the 23rd of November.
I'm not sure, Ron, but I'll double check the calendar. Yeah.
We'll shoot for the 23rd, and then that'd be like I said, a 15-day nominal comment period. Sorry, there's a riding mower outside my door now. It's one of those days. 15-day nominal comment period, and then we'll take it up on the January agenda if we meet. I assume we will.
Okay. Thanks for explaining that. And then, DLM, thank you folks for hanging in with us. You're done with us for a little bit, so thanks for taking the time.
Yeah, that should also be published in the OEQC notice in the next available. The list will say that the Environmental Council has concurred, and then we'll go up on our website.
Okay, great. You folks are welcome to stay on for the rest of our meeting, and if not, thanks again for joining. Appreciate your time. Okay.
Hello.
Aloha. Okay.
Thank
So
you.
Ron, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Nicholas. Okay. So Ron, I'll go ahead and hand it back to you. I know there's one more item for the exemption committee.
Righto. Okay. Yeah, we had a member of the judiciary, Krillane, is that her name?
Her name was Joanne Kripane. Joanne Kripane.
Kripane, right. Joanne Kripane came from the judiciary. She's their CIP manager. And Bill, had you arranged for her to come, or you invited somebody?
They knew about it, and so I didn't arrange personally with her to come.
Well, I'm glad they decided to come. Unfortunately, we didn't have much time. It was a very busy meeting, and we missed some of the items and gave short shrift to others. I'm going to have to make an hour-and-a-half meeting, it looks like, from now on a lot of the time. But she did explain that most of their projects are very minor, and all they involve is a building permit. That the big projects they have, the judiciary has, they have DAGs handle for them. So as you guys will recall, judiciary, we had this discussion before, judiciary is not a 343 agency. It's actually exempt from 343. And normally, you know, they hold court, but they decided to build some things. So it puts them in a funny position where they don't want to not comply with Chapter 343, but they're not really subject to it according to the law. So it was, you know, they're trying to do the right thing. And we're trying to figure out, you know, exactly how they should be treated, whether perhaps they are an applicant rather than an agency in this sense. If they're an applicant, then the agency that grants them the permit would would make the exemption. So they don't need an exemption list. Applicants can't have exemption lists. So we're kind of going that route right now. So as long as they're not doing major projects that you know, they can probably do it this way. We're going to continue this discussion in a future meeting and try to get more guidance. Bill, do you want to go over latest legal theory on this?
Well, no, basically you hit the nail right on the head, Ron, and that is that because they're going for building permits, they're ministerial as opposed to discretionary permits. I think, though, I'm going to loop back into what I brought up earlier with Keith about possibly going to the ledge and getting an amendment under 343-2 for the definition of what an agency is, because they may want to have that ability to maybe do a project on their own outside of DAGs for a more major project, you know, and so maybe they could be expanded. I don't know. I mean, that's something that's maybe could be considered at the next hearing, our meeting that we have as well, as far as possible, and maybe taken up by the legislative subcommittee as well. Because it is unclear. And so what we're proposing here is what we're going to be able to do with how we read the law as it is, but it'd probably be better to have the law clarified. But what you had suggested is correct, and that right now they're very small projects. They're just getting building permits, and therefore they are not. They are applicants. They are not an agency, as the definition is in our statutes and in our rules. So therefore, they don't need to have an exemption list.
Yeah.
I'll note, I don't think they can have an exemption list as applicants, right? Only agencies can.
Well, yeah,
So-
correct. Yeah.
Right. Mhm. Yeah, and so for them, I mean, you know, I guess it's advantageous in a way to the judiciary to be considered an applicant in this situation if they truly are doing things that don't require a discretionary approval, because then it makes, you know, basically they can proceed without 343 review. But if they were to do those bigger projects, you know, they'd likely have a trigger anyways and would have to go through as an applicant. So I think basically where we're at is our comfort level, and we'll probably have to discuss this more, is if they're truly just applying for it's really the Manini things, like they had expressed that, you know, sometimes DAGs just takes too long to get stuff done. And they're just needing these kind of more minor ministerial permits. It's perhaps okay for them to proceed accordingly as any applicant would. But if they're gonna do anything big, if they're gonna build a new courthouse, that's gonna be triggered somehow, and review would be undertaken, right?
That's correct.
And so I just wanted to put on for a future agenda item, once we solve this big problem of the world, Onauna, you know, at the next available meeting that we could do this, I think we really need to talk about the legislature and their grants and aid, because they're a much larger example of this same issue. The legislature similarly is not a 343 agency, but they're handing out money like candy for grants and aids. And if you ask anybody at the legislature, they'll either say it's not subject to 343 or we let DAGS take care of that. And DAGS doesn't take care of that. So there are a number of projects that are being funded with state money that have no 343 oversight. And a lot of grants and aid projects have other sources of funding or that are state and county, or they involve other discretionary permits that traps them in the net of 343. But, you know, if you're giving away $500,000 to a nonprofit to do something, you know, as worthy as that is, I think you need to consider the environment. You can't just get a free pass. And right now, they do. So I'd like to discuss that in the full council. It's not really an exemption issue. It's a full council issue.
I will add it to the December meeting. I think we should have space in the agenda. I know Makaala had her hand up. Go ahead.
I just have a question that something that we've talked about on Kauai when we did get the new judicial building, the justice building. It centralized a whole lot of services and so forth, and there wasn't any discussion. I don't know if that was handled by DAGS or by the judiciary, but I'm not sure all that discussion was environmental, but there may have been issues. I just don't remember any conversation about it. It was like, we're the government and we're building this new thing and we're building this new thing. So I guess I'm looking for an example, maybe a most recent example, which I don't know if that's Kona or us, but of where that project occurred. You know, how did it happen? Was it DAGS or was it, you know, some other thing? And gosh, I had not even thought about grants and aid. I mean, I don't commonly see really big ones, but to the extent that they require permitting, you know, of any kind, it's still not a 343 review often. So, and doesn't, yeah, that's worrisome to me. Thank you, Ron.
Okay, I think we're going to have a lively legislative discussion at our next meeting. I think there's kind of several items and some other stuff I'll probably want to raise, but I'll wait until we can get that agendized for December. Okay, anything else on this agenda item? And sorry, Ron, I think you did say it, but we essentially ran out of time and had to defer further discussion on this.
That's true. Yeah, I don't know if Bill has anything else to say.
No, I don't, unless you want to continue to the next, I guess, subcommittee discussion as well, but I don't have anything to add. I think we can address it at the next, basically the next full committee meeting when we talk about the legislation.
Okay, thanks, Bill. All right, anything else, Ron?
No, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much for your hard work working with the agencies on those exemption lists. I mean, they're really not for the faint, and we know it takes a lot of time really picking through those things. So we appreciate that you're on the front lines, you know, really kind of taking the brunt of it for the rest of us. All right, so next up we have the annual report committee update. So Rob, I will go ahead and hand it over to you.
Great, thank you, Chair, and great to see everybody. Our annual report committee did not meet since last time. If you recall, at our last full council meeting, we voted to approve myself and Robin as 2 of our 5 committee members to work with the people that have volunteered to help prepare our SurveyMonkey format questions. And so we refined the list of questions that was approved at the last meeting and worked with Lisa Grove and Max Becker. And I think we had a very fruitful month of refining things. So on the agenda, you'll see that there's a link to the SurveyMonkey draft questions, and I hope everybody's had opportunity to look at it. It's pretty straightforward. Robin and I have taken a couple of rounds of review and refinement and editing, and so I think we're very close. You know, of course, I'll ask for input of the whole council if there's anything that we missed. So as far as projected timeline, I think assuming that we can approve this format and these questions today, it would be my hope that I can work with you, Chair, over the next week and do what we did last year, which is take our introductory email and reformat that for the relevance of this year to the agencies that we want to contact and solicit input from. I think we can do that in the next week. So I would aim for next Tuesday, November 17th, to send something out from OEQC, because that's how we did it last year, right? So assuming that we can identify OEQC staff and that they have the time, I would target that. The survey itself says, please respond by November 30th. So we would be giving them a full 2 weeks to respond. Now I had a quick thought just in the last couple of minutes on sending out that email. I have a draft list, thanks to help from Tessie and Roy and Ron for their prospective counties, and I prepared a prospective agency list for Maui County. And it's about from 5 to 6 to 8 agencies per county. So it's not a huge list, and so I have all those emails ready to send to OEQC. And my question for the group is, when we send that out, should we do it in CC or BCC? If it's CC'd, then people can see the other agencies that are being solicited to provide input for our annual report. But there may be an argument to just blind copy it as well. So that's, I want to first just ask council members their thoughts on that.
I think I'm okay. I see the value in kind of doing it either way. Bill, Les, I mean, I think this is when I would kind of defer to you folks on what's appropriate. Yeah.
Well, legally, I don't see any problem with blind copying it or CCing it. I think strategically, though, you may want to ensure that they're giving you an independent answer. So by blind copying it, you can prevent them from maybe coordinating their answers.
Yeah, I agree.
I also think, while, you know, CCing provides transparency, I could also see there being the possibility for agencies to say, well, how come you didn't include these folks? And why aren't these folks included? I could see that extending our time frame potentially.
Now, I'll note one thing. In the cover letters that we did last year to the agencies, we did note specifically the 6 agencies that we were, you know, essentially asking to participate. So it was disclosed, at least in our cover letter. So regardless of whether we CC people or BCC people, maybe just our cover letter will note, you know, these are the folks that we're reaching out to this year, and this is the reason why.
I think that's good reasoning, Chair. And And so I'll work with you to refine our cover letter. And then, as others have noted, then we can allude to what those agencies are, but then we don't need to name everyone by putting them in a CC where they can see the long list. So I'm fine with doing it that way.
I want to add just one thing to what Rob was saying. Selfishly, because I know the people that are helping us, but I want to shout out to them in some way, because they're going to be doing the tabulation for us as well. So it's going to be a very easy process for the EC, which, as you'll remember, was the basis for setting up this kind of a very simple system. We're actually going to be on time. It's going to be easy to do. And I think, you know, later on we can deal with a thank you and an acknowledgement, but I just wanted to let you know that this woman, who is a professional, and the person who's helping her is her son in this business as well. The nicest thing I heard from them, besides for doing it at all, was their willingness to provide the tabulation and the report back to us on what we heard. So they're going to key it in. It'll all be invisible. No one will know that she's doing it. It's going to look like it's our project. She's offered to do the follow-ups on, hey, we haven't heard back from you, in a way that doesn't embarrass anybody or call them out to others to see who hasn't responded. So she's really thought this through, and it'll be, I think, a pretty good system for us.
Thanks, Robin.
Meeting that.
So to pick up on that, when the tabulation comes in by the end of the month, I anticipate that in early December, Robin and I will continue to work with Lisa and Max. They'll give us what they have from the survey, and we will begin to compile that main part of the report. And then also in the month of December, we'll work with OEQC to make sure that we have director's message and the chair's message, which I think we mentioned previously can allude to the contested case that we had this year, and then the bios, and then that is the bulk of our annual report. So that would put us in line to have that draft ready for our January 5th meeting for final approval going forward. Concurrently, I think, and I want to ask Keith, concurrently, I think we may want to go out to bid to format and print, as we did a few months ago. I did see that email come through 2 or 3 months ago that you were asking for the same amount, about $15,000, to support us in this respect. And provided that we can get the jump start on that in December, then I think it puts us in good position to complete this by the end of January, as we're mandated to. And that's pretty much my update. So I'm open to discussion. Chair, you can lead that discussion.
Yeah, thank you folks very much, Robin, the rest of the annual report committee, for your folks' hard work and pulling together really a new format for this year. So it looks like we're doing something new every year. Maybe 1 year we'll stick with one, but at least we're trying to figure out what's working, right? So thank you, folks. You know, just let me know how I can support, and yeah, Rob, we can work on those letters, you know, this week to kind of get those out. Roy, you have a comment?
Yeah, Rob, are we contacting any federal agencies? We had a list on that thing I sent.
Right. I proposed that we contact, I included a few in my Maui County list, ones that I actually know the contact people because I've worked with them previously. So the Haleakala National Park, NOAA, and the Humpback
NOAA would be good. Okay.
Yeah, Kihei, and also U.S. Fish and Wildlife. So I do have those on our.
Okay, good.
You know, I wonder, excuse me, Roy, I wonder if it would be helpful for Rob to circulate to the council, if we can do this within the operational procedures, of the names of the names of the departments that the three of you put together, and then if there's anything that's really obviously missing, I wouldn't say each person can add 25 more organizations. But if Stephanie saw this list of 20 agencies and thought, wow, you're really missing a great opportunity by not talking to agency X. So maybe, I don't know, Onan, if that's legitimate, or Bill, if there's a prohibition on that, but it would be, I would think, helpful for you all to see who's getting this, as we did last year. And then under a limit, don't go crazy, add 1 or 2 agencies to it.
I think that, well, it sounds fine to me, and I'll defer again to Bill. If Rob, you can send that list to Les. Les will distribute to the members, and then folks who have comments. I mean, I think as long as comments are provided directly to Rob and not to the council as a whole, or do comments need to be provided to you, Les?
Yeah, if you provide comments to me, then I'll just compile them.
Okay. Thank you, Les.
I
Yeah.
just clarify.
Could we just do it right now? There's not that many agencies.
Yeah, I did send that list to Onana and Bill and Les about an hour ago. So,
I haven't checked my email because I'm on Zoom right now. So,
But I mean, you could. I mean, you could just read them off right now in our public meeting. But it's like 30, right?
6 each from Kauai and, no, 5 from Kauai, 6 each from Oahu and Hawaii County, and I think there was 8 from Maui County plus 3 federal is 11. So yeah, it's about 30.
Yeah, I'll leave that to you. If the rest of the council thinks that's helpful to just do it verbally, then go for it. I don't have a preference either way.
My sense is that probably the most efficient way to do this, rather than having us read them out and those of us who are over 70 trying to remember 30 agencies. Sorry. But perhaps if, in the interest of time, if Les could send that out today or tomorrow, and everybody's got 1 or 2 days max to respond, and your only response is to add an agency or 2, and get that back to Les, then we're done. I just don't want to miss any agencies that you as council members think would have been really good to have involved in this.
I think that's fair. Yeah, I think that's fair, Robin. And I would add that tomorrow is a legal holiday.
Fine. Then get Les. Sorry.
No. Rob, did you send the list to me, or you sent it to the office?
I sent it to you.
You sent it to me. Okay, I'll check. Okay.
Okay, that sounds fine. So let's say end of day Thursday to look at this list. Does that work? If everybody can get comments. So Les, if you can get that out after the meeting today, we'll give everybody till end of day Thursday. If they want to add any agencies, you're not allowed to suggest deletions, only additions.
And the way the list worked really well, Rob was really smart in doing this, and thank you to the three people who submitted it. Not just the name of the agency, but the name of the person at that agency and a contact email as well. Because obviously there's no staff to help us do this. So if you know somebody, Steph, again, I'll pick on you just because you're right there. If you know somebody at Agency Z, please tell us how to contact Mr. or Mrs. Agency Z. Does that make sense? Okay, thank you.
Great. All right, anything else, Rob?
Well, I guess just a question to Keith on if you could, and maybe perhaps Les too, on how to go about with a solicitation for procurement of contract to format and publish.
Okay, we can check on that, Rob. I had a question about that initial, I guess you're saying compiling the data, putting in some format. Is that the same person that did put the report together last year?
No, not at all. She had nothing to do with last year's.
Okay, so is this person charging for this work or the?
No, it's all volunteer, all pro bono. And she doesn't want any visibility or credit at this point. I think you can thank her, you know, Onauna can send something on behalf, or you, Keith, but no, it's all pro bono.
Okay.
It's been a tremendous help because they are very, very familiar with SurveyMonkey formats and how to get the right kind of a response by asking the question the right way. And, you know, I thought it was wonderful working with them.
And we're going through her SurveyMonkey account, so there's no charge for us to do this. She's just a really good community person.
Okay, I'd like to hear that.
Yeah, I just want to interject. This is Bill Cooper again. As to our suggestion for added agencies, can we make sure that we just send our comments or our additions just directly to Les and not to any of the other board members? And also make sure that we don't communicate with each other amongst, you know, about any of those suggestions as well. And then Les will just be in charge of all of them. Are we clear on that?
Yes.
That'd be the way we go. Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Bill. And if anybody has questions on that process, please let us know. But yeah, so Les will email the entire group. Please do not reply all with your suggested edits. That should go just to Les. And then he'll compile it and distribute it to Rob.
Fantastic.
And I'll have the office check on the budget and procurement information. I'll get back to you.
Thanks, Keith. Robin, just one more question about the folks who are volunteering, because I believe, you know, we've expressed to the agencies, or we're going to express that, well, let me take a step back. Are we making any expression that the information they're providing us is confidential? Number one. And then how do we know for sure that information that is being compiled is confidential with the person who's helping us with this?
Yeah, I think she's aware of the need for confidentiality. You know, they have to be coded, but no one will ever see that. And I think the answer to your first question is that we need to put into the cover letter something about this is a confidential survey. We ask one demographic, or not even a demographic. If you notice at the very last question was, how many years have you been at the place you're at? Other than that, there's nothing identifying you in the survey, other than what you can't see so she can track it. That's all.
Thank you for clarifying that. Yeah, yes, it does. I just want to make sure if we're going to make that representation, right, that it's confidential, that on our end, we are in fact, you know, putting in procedures that, you know, I think typically with a normal vendor, there would probably some kind of agreement, you know, to that effect, that, you know, the data can't be used for whatever other reason. So I know this person's volunteering, and yeah, I just want to make sure they understand, you know, our expectations that the information won't be used in some sort of way, you know, that we haven't asked of them to use it.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, I think I would include some of that language in your cover letter.
Okay. All right. Roy, you have some, or
Yeah.
Rob?
Oh, this is slightly different, but my understanding is the Aloha Plus Challenge has a report out summarizing the, I guess, past data. I think it was over 5 years, and now, you know, they used to report the data, whatever, every year, but now they compiled it, and now you can kind of see a trend. So I was wondering if we're going to have something on that in our report, and whether we can ask some of those Aloha Plus folks to address that. I mean, I think it's important. Now we have like 4 or 5 years of data. Now we can see trends and see how the progress has been, and, you know, what are the recommendations for the future and so on. So I thought that was significant for them to come out with a report.
Thanks, Roy. That's a good question. I'll turn that over, you know, I'll pose it to Rob.
Yeah, I sent Rob the link earlier.
Well, I would say that in the past few years, we have referenced the work that Aloha Plus Challenge has been doing and included elements of their dashboard. I would be open to it. I don't think it's necessarily redundant, that, you know, it's essentially sustainability data on environmental and community issues. I think at this point, if we want to include it, we probably would be wise to make a motion so that the council could weigh in on whether they want to include that as well, since we haven't previously discussed it in committee.
I would stick my nose in here and say no. I think the whole purpose of the way we've designed this annual report was to make it simple and direct and a survey-based document. Adding in something else like this, which I'm sure will be very valuable, is going to involve adding something to it. We don't have the staff. It's going to take some narrative to explain. I think if it's really what you say, I think because of how important it is, Roy, that perhaps we send out something in January or February as kind of an update or a newsletter from the council, something we can talk about when we get to strategic planning. But putting it into the annual report is just going to bring us back from what the progress we've made on making it really simple.
So I was thinking it could be simple as a brief description that the report is out in a link, and that's it. Oh, that would be the easiest and simplest. I'm not sure if anyone else has seen it. I just briefly looked at it, but it might be good for others to look at it. It could be simple as a link, and that's it. It could be a 1 page or half a page thing, just that. I think because we've always included the Low Plus Challenge article and so on.
Hey, Roy, can I suggest that if you can share that link with Les, he can also put that out to the group.
Okay.
I would say let's not make a motion to add it here because we don't have it as an action item on our agenda.
Right.
So folks can take a look at it. We can go ahead and discuss it further in December.
And just for what it's worth, I'm fairly familiar with their with that report, and I think you're right, Roy. I think it does have a lot of value. What I'm not sure about though is how it fits in and in parallel to Robin's comment with this annual report, and potentially what could happen. I'm not sure how the narrative is of our report is going to play out, but it could certainly be referenced in the chair's sort of executive summary, or in one of those other aspects of the report that we include, without having to really change course in the direction that we've chosen.
Yeah, I see it mainly as a supplement, if anything, just some added information.
Okay. I think that's a good suggestion. So yeah, Roy, if you can go ahead and share the link, and then maybe, I'll ask you folks for some assistance with maybe drafting just, a paragraph or two for the chair's message. Once we get a chance to take a look at it, and we'll see if it fits in and whatnot.
Yeah, so in the past, we had somebody else write the report. Rob, I can't remember the person's name, the lady.
Chelsea Harder.
Yeah.
Yeah, so do you think it's necessary to reach out to her for this, or if we're just?
I think where we're at, sending the link to everyone first, and getting quick comment back. We have got 2 more meetings to approve of what's ultimately going to be in the final report. So we can bring it up again, and we could agendize it for next month's meeting, and even have a draft ready. And I'm personally in touch with Chelsea, so I could ask her to do what she did last year, which is just a few paragraphs to frame it.
Yeah. Okay. That would make sense. Okay. Sorry, just making a couple notes, folks.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Any other discussion for annual report? Okay,
I do. If I recall from the last meeting that none of the lawsuit could be put into an annual report because of objections. I mean, are we still going through the lawsuit?
Yeah,
Is
so
my question.
yeah, it's still on appeal, and I'll let Bill report because I don't know
Yeah.
much other than that. But I mean, aside from, you know, procedurally noting what happened with the appeal, I mean, we can do something, you know, brief mentioning it, that it came to the council, but, you know, not talking about deliberations and that type of stuff, right? And so Bill, I'll kind of defer to you.
Yeah, I agree with you, Winona. It's still pending. It's in the circuit court. I would prefer that, you know, we not discuss it because, you know, anything we put in published, you know, in our report could be used by one party or the other. It would definitely be something that would be good to put in a report after everything is completed. But at this point, I recommend that if anything, we just note that there was a lawsuit, you know, or an appeal. And there's a subsequent lawsuit. You can put that in the report if it's really something that you want to put in there.
Yeah, I mean, I think just reporting on what we went through the year is important, and just from the standpoint of, you know, it's the first appeal in however many years it came to the council, and we can just leave it, you know, very high level on status and not say anything beyond that. Beyond, you know, of course, not opining on any of the claims made by the parties or that type of thing. I think that'll probably be appropriate, but, you know, I'll draft it and of course run it by you, Bill, before anything goes out. And
That'd be great.
Yeah, Tessie, you had another comment?
Yes. So, Bill, do we still have to keep our box of papers?
Well, no, we have, it's Les and the team over at OQC did a fantastic job, and all those papers are now part of the record on appeal in the circuit court. So,
okay. So that's all been scanned and okay.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Les and OEQC for working on that, and Bill. Okay, folks, do we have any other discussion on annual report? Mary, go ahead.
Bill, do we have to shred that box or can we throw it away?
It's a public document. I doubt very much anybody would be interested in it besides, you know, anyway, yeah, you can just throw it away, recycle it preferably. But,
and I would just say if you took handwritten notes on any pages, though, I'll ask that you shred that or dispose of that carefully. But otherwise, yes, it's public record, so please recycle.
yes, yeah, I agree with that. Any notes that you have, any kind of comments, anything you may have received from somebody else, like emails or something, if you're putting that in there, make sure they get shredded for sure.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. So
do we need, I'm sorry, when I look on the agenda, it says discussion of and action on. So do we need any kind of vote on the SurveyMonkey?
that's right. Rob, did you want to vote on approving the SurveyMonkey items? So I think that came off of our earlier agenda. Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah, I'm looking at the wording on the agenda and I know where my agenda is.
Thanks, Robin, for catching that. Yeah, I think when we were developing the agenda, well, I guess, yeah. So let me know if we need to go ahead and approve. I know you submitted the questions. I just, you know, I had taken a look at them earlier with you folks, and the formatting itself, I mean, you know, it's great. We had folks put that into a nice formatting. It looks professional and whatnot.
I think what we need to do, Rob, please correct me here, but I thought all we really needed to do is get the council to formally approve the questions and the fact that it's in SurveyMonkey. That's it.
Yeah, I guess maybe someone would like to phrase that in the form of a motion.
Can I do that, Winona? I move that the council approve the SurveyMonkey questions and format for the annual report.
And Tessie, you seconded? Okay. All right, folks, is there any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Keep your hands up. All right, are there any opposed? And any abstentions? All right, motion passes. Thank you, Rob, and the Annual Report Committee. All right, so coming up next on the agenda, I did have a space for the Legislative Committee update. I know you folks didn't meet. I think we had some things that came up in our exemption committee, and I think actually in this discussion, right, of potential, 343 proposals and whatnot. So, Robin, if there's anything you want to say about that, and if not, I think we will have I'll develop a better agenda for December, including discussion of these particular items that came up today so that we can really have, a discussion on them.
I agree. I think that's a good idea, Nana. The only question I would have is, would that, there have been some issues about rule changes that we didn't include for a number of reasons, the absence of time, or didn't think about it at the time. And there are some issues we may want to revisit. Is that a separate conversation from legislative issues? I know there's some complicated rules on revisiting the rules revisions. So are these two separate conversations, or do we incorporate the possible changes to the rules in this conversation?
Sure. So we do have a rules committee, which has been dormant for a while, right? Because after the rules were passed, we kind of put it off, and then we also had the PIG to look at our procedure rules, and then we got the appeal, so we really didn't have time to do that. So depending on the rules that you're if you're talking about our rules, I mean, that might better be under the rules committee. So maybe we have a rules committee meeting, or at least agendize it under rules committee update. I think that would be appropriate in that case, and, kind of keep legislation, separate. I mean, to the extent there might be some crossover, right? I mean, for example, anything that would impact changes in chapter 343 would also have an impact to our rules potentially, right? So yeah, I think there's a little wiggle room, but to keep it in nice little boxes, we might want to bring back our rules committee.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with that. Anna.
Thank you. Okay, and let me just check my list, but Mahina, were you the rules committee chair? I'm trying to, let me check. All right, okay.
I think so,
Thank
yeah.
you. Yeah. So maybe I'm trying to think of the best way to do this. I do want to make sure that we are doing things properly, obviously. Robin, if you have specific things that need to be addressed in the rules, maybe you can, kind of coordinate with Mahina so she can work on an agenda and determine, number one, if we need to have a rules committee meeting, or if this is something that should really just come straight to the full council rather than doing it in committee. You can just communicate, Mahina can communicate to me as the other chairs do, hey, can you add these agenda items to the full EC agenda? Yeah, and likewise for folks who have legislative stuff, because I have a couple of things that I think are legislative, so I'll reach out to Robin and say, hey, can you add this? Can we talk about this at the next meeting, basically? So I think that's probably the most productive now, just so that we don't, I'm sure there's a lot of things we want to talk about now, but I unfortunately don't have them as agenda items. So I just want to make sure we're staying within chapter 92. Bill, does that process work?
Limiting your discussion is a good idea because we didn't agendize it. And then second of all, the process of putting it on the next agenda is fine.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah,
now,
because, sorry, go ahead.
a question. It sounds like we're going to have 3 or 4 committees meeting at the same time, which is always a challenge for a small group like this. Do the committee meetings need to be the same day as the EC meeting? Could we, for example, I'm making this up, but could we, for example, have the Ledge Committee meet the day before? And then exemptions and rules meet the day of? Are we required to do it on the same day?
I don't think so. I think we can call special meetings, but Bill and Les, you might know better about how we can accommodate that. Typically what we had done in the past, right, was we had folks schedule, basically we'd have meetings starting essentially at 9 a.m. with committees, right? So we could stagger the meetings to some effect. I know this might get a little complicated because I don't think we can stagger Zoom meetings. So they would have to be, you know, one after the other essentially, right? Because Les needs to host all of them. So I think having it on a different day, we'd have to consider whether or not Les is available on days other than the one day that we've dedicated to council work. And then I don't know if Bill or Les or other considerations that need to be taken in, but other than that, I don't see any reason why it couldn't be on a different day.
You know, I don't, as long as it's properly noticed, I don't see a problem. But, you know, as a matter of practicality, I think pretty much everybody in the community expects to have the meetings on the first Tuesday of the month, right? So, I mean, if you have it on a different day, even though it's a subcommittee, you know, people might, you know, be rather, and the general public might be kind of taken unaware of that and be upset about it.
Well, I just think that's too bad. I'm sorry, that's just, the public can figure out when it is and join in. My gosh, we've got to all compromise with this Zoom stuff. If Les is the only one that can do a Zoom meeting, I think that Robin's totally right on.
Okay, that's
I'm
fine.
sorry, I'm just over this.
No, and Mary, yeah, I agree. I mean, like Ron was so, not a criticism of Ron, he did a great job, but that was just such too little time for the exemption committee.
Yeah.
And the legislative committee is going to be a really complicated conversation as well. Just a list that I made just from today's comments, yet alone what Onan is going to cook up in the next couple of days. It's complicated stuff. And we don't want people not to speak. So I think Mary's right. We let the public know, we notice whatever the requirements are, and then we do what we have to do a really good job. So
yeah, I don't have any, there's no legal problem with that. So just as long as you notice it, then that's great.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Bill makes a good point, but we did have rules committee meeting that met more than once a month back when we were doing the rules, and it worked out okay.
Right. Yeah. So I think generally, if we obviously can keep it on the same day, just for when getting committee people dedicate the first Tuesdays of the month to council work. I know I do, and kind of set my schedule up that way. I think to the extent we can, but if we're having, 4 committee meetings, possibly 5 now, yes, if we need to move them to separate days, then let's go ahead and do it. So, let's start with just December. Which committee exemptions needs to meet, legislative committee needs to meet, annual report needs to meet, or does annual report need to meet? You're on mute, Rob. Sorry.
Next month?
Yeah, for December.
Probably, since we didn't meet this month.
Okay. INO, do you need to meet in December?
I don't think so.
Okay. And then for rules, Mahina, do you think you need a rules meeting, or is it something, because we can also just agenda stuff straight onto EC, right? Your choice. And I just want to get an idea of, number one, how many meetings, because, as Robin said, our exemption committee meeting definitely could have used an hour and a half today. So if all meetings are taking an hour and a half, it is hard to do for back-to-back meetings prior to a council meeting, and that might go into the consideration of whether or not we keep all committee meetings on the same day versus having it maybe the day before instead.
let me complicate that even further, Onana, because further down on the agenda, we're going to start talking about strategic planning. And that's no doubt going to fall into some committee, whether it's a PIG or whether it goes to rules or however, that's a whole nother component that we're not going to be able to deal with, I don't think, just as a group, as the council. So that may be in yet another committee or however you recommend dealing with that. So, you know, unless we start these meetings at 6 o'clock in the evening, we're going to run out of time.
Sure. I understand. Okay. Well, Mahina, maybe think about it a little bit more. and maybe the determination of whether or not rules meets for December. And again, folks, I think we need to just start with December and see how it works before we make, full decisions on how we're going to have future committee meetings. And there's something else I wanted to talk about which may impact this. But maybe Robin, after you raise what particular rules you had in mind to Mahina, she can determine whether or not that goes to committee or that's something that comes straight to council, right? Okay, so I think that makes sense. So we basically don't have a decision. Well, let me hear this. So if we're gonna do committee meetings ahead of time, our next meeting we're looking at right now is Tuesday, December 1st. So obviously any committee meetings that do not happen on the 1st, I would think would have to happen on the 30th or the 27th of this month, which 27th is Black Friday, so that's probably a no. So Les, what's your schedule on Monday the 30th if committees wish to meet on Monday the 30th? And maybe you don't have to answer now, but that's something we need to know. And then for the committees that want to meet on the 30th rather than at our normal meeting, which will be on December 1st, I think chairs of your committees, you'll have to poll your members to make sure you have the appropriate quorum. Anything else I'm missing?
Nana, could you remind us of the committee assignments? Ledge hasn't met in such a long time. I think Mary is on it, but I forget who else is on it, and I don't have my card.
I have that little card thing.
Yeah, Mary, if you can bring it up. Sorry,
Mary.
I'm looking for mine right now. 1 second.
I have it right here.
Fantastic.
We have on Ledge, Robin, Mahina, Mary, and Mike. You want to know anything else?
What about rules? Who's on rules?
Rules is Mahina, Maka'ala, Onauna, and Ron.
Mm-hmm.
Mahina, Maka'ala.
And Ron?
Just 3.
Mahina, Maka'ala, Onauna, and Ron.
Oh, Onauna, I'm sorry. Okay.
Okay, let's see. Yeah, do we need to know any other ones for right now? Okay, so the time that we had originally set for meetings was 11 a.m. was rules and I&O, 11:30 for annual report, and then 12 for exemptions and legislative, which we can't do anymore. We need to move things up. If we are to do all the same day, we're gonna have to start doing meetings earlier. I would say, maybe starting at 8 or 9 o'clock, depending on people's schedules. So again, the folks that we know are meeting for sure for December are annual report, exemptions, and annual report, exemptions, and legislative committee. So I don't know if we're gonna get to it by the end of this meeting, but maybe chairs, you can work with Les on whether or not you're gonna, again, I think November 30th, that's a Monday, would probably be the appropriate date to meet because our meeting is Tuesday, December 1st. So please work that out with Les. And then also, just so you folks know, your agenda due dates are gonna be a day ahead of our normal EC agenda date. So we just have to keep that in mind as well.
Well, now, is it okay if I keep exemptions on the same day?
Yeah, do you want to do 11:30?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
So that, you and I are both on rules,
Mm-hmm.
and Maka'ala too, right? So, so then, we'd obviously have to either meet earlier in that day or the day before, and I could make the time. So.
Yeah, I think likewise for me. So once Mahina decides if we need a rules meeting or not, then we'll get back. So annual report and legislative, are you folks still thinking you want to meet the day ahead or the same day? Because right now you'd have to meet, essentially at 10:30 a.m. or earlier if we're going to do exemptions at 11:30.
My guess for Ledge would be, like exemptions, to schedule an hour and a half for this first meeting since we haven't met before.
Okay.
And I already have 5 issues that have come up just from today. And if we finish early, great, but I would hate for us to run out of time.
Okay.
So if we could start, say, from 10 to 11:30, right? And then exemptions is 11:30 to 1. What does
Okay.
that do to annual? Well,
So annual report, you could still meet on the same day. Annual report, do you think you need an hour and a half, or is an hour sufficient? Because you could do 9 to 10 on December 1st, or you could do November 30th.
I think 9 to 10, if it works for members. And I don't think we need more than an hour. I think we can aim for an hour and probably complete in less than that.
Okay. So right now we're looking at, I'll just repeat it, December 1st, we're so far keeping the 3 committees we know are meeting. On December 1st, we have annual report from 9 to 10 a.m. We have ledge from 10 to 11:30, and then we have exemptions from 11:30 to 1, and then full council from 1 to 3:30 about. And then yeah, rules, if so it's looking like rules we'll have to do either really early, like 8 to 9 on December 1st, which I'm fine with, but up to you folks, or maybe look at a November 30th if we need a rules committee. Okay, so that'll be TBD, but okay, that works. Thank you, folks.
oh, no, I'm sorry, one more minor thing. I'm going to have to get off exemptions or annual report. I can't do 3 committees, all 3 meetings at the same time. So I had agreed to do exemptions, and I'll be glad to continue with that because I so admire the way Ron runs these meetings, and I just want to keep learning from the dude. But I don't think I can stay on annual report as well.
Okay. So annual report, the current, it's Rob, Robin, Roy, you got off annual report, right? You're not on there anymore?
No, I'm still
Roy's
on.
on.
Okay. Okay, so
I got off annual report.
okay, so this is current. Okay, so annual report is currently Rob, Robin, Roy, Steph, and Tessie. So Robin will step down. You folks will still have Rob, Roy, Stephanie, and Tessie. Is that okay with annual report committee?
It is, however, Robin's our primary liaison to our volunteers who are helping with this year's report. So
I'll keep doing that for you, Rob. I just won't be going to the meetings. I'll communicate with you and Lisa wherever necessary. I just won't spend the time at the meetings.
Okay.
Fine.
Is that okay, Onana, to do it that way?
I think that's fine with me,
Okay.
as long as it's fine with the rest of the folks.
Yeah, I mean, I can walk across the street to Lisa's house, and so it's real easy.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin.
Okay.
You've
Yeah,
been a big help. I need you.
all right. So we have, oh, it looks like Mike left the meeting. Anybody know what time Mike left? So I can note it in the minute.
I didn't even notice. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Les, maybe if you can just note that. I don't know if you can tell.
I just noticed that like a few minutes ago, 2 minutes ago.
Okay. Yeah,
So I
just
think it was about
yeah,
10.
10 minutes later. We still have quorum, so it's okay. Okay, thank you folks for going through that painstaking scheduling. So again, we discussed no legislative committee update. We're going to postpone that to the next one for agenda purposes. I have here for INO, same thing, but I don't think we have anything right, so I can go ahead and skip over that. Okay, thank you. Number 8 in our, and sorry, I'm moving this forward because we still have stuff to discuss. Number 8 is discussion of vacant council seats. So just wanted to give you folks an update. I believe we still have 3 open seats. I know that one person has applied, and Sharon from Boards and Commission reached out. So, you know, they're at least looking at that person's application. I'm not sure, and maybe Keith knows if, you know, that person will be appointed during the next session or not. We'll see. And, you know, also in talking to Sharon, I asked her if there were any other applications, which there weren't. But I expressed directly to her that our
There'll be another one before the end of this week.
Oh, okay. Wonderful.
A young lady I met through Rotary, but she's the president of her. She's an attorney by degree from first Russia and then California.
Oh, interesting.
And she's currently one of the directors at Hugs.
Oh, sorry, Mary, you're kind of freezing. Is that happening to anybody else? Okay.
To apply. So I sent her the link and I talked to her about it. We'll see.
Okay.
She's a young person, so I thought that was a good thing.
Okay, so if I get contacted by Sharon, you know, when that application comes through, is it okay if I direct her to you since you
Sure.
you know that
Yeah.
person? Okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'll send you her name so that you have it.
Okay. Yeah, and so the one thing I did mention to Sharon is that, you know, the council has expressed, you know, for some time that we do want somebody that has expertise in traditional customary practices, right? So I again, you know, made that you know, pitch essentially to Sharon. I think I don't know if she was completely clear on the current status of folks that were participating, but I thought she had mentioned to me that he's had put in another application, but I wasn't 100% sure. So, and she wasn't really clear on it yet, but just wanted to kind of inform people of that. But, and also if you folks know of anybody who wants to apply specifically for that position, I know we've been having a hard time, you know, finding somebody. Please encourage them to apply and serve, because that would be wonderful. Did anybody else have any Sorry, I think Roy, you had your hand up.
Yeah, so I think one of the recommended positions was a construction position, and previously Joseph fulfilled that position.
Right.
So anyway, just, you know, if anybody knows a construction person, that would be helpful.
Okay. Did anybody else have anything to share? Okay. All right, and any other discussion on that particular item? No. All right, so moving on, kind of for the most part, our last thing, this is what discussion of a potential strategic planning session for the council. And I know some folks had some ideas for that, so I'm just going to open it up to everybody to go ahead and discuss and what that might look like. Nobody wants to take it?
I had a thought. There
I'm sorry,
was
my internet's unstable.
if I may, there's been some talk about maybe having our discussion facilitated, and there's a gentleman by the name of John Parks who I think is very, very qualified to lead a strategic planning discussion. I've worked with a couple of environmental groups with whom he has volunteered his services. I would guess that Stephanie has probably worked with him. He does things in Hawaii and also worldwide. He's very eminently qualified. Just a suggestion.
You know, we've worked with him on Kauai as well. He's excellent. I don't know what budget constraints we're going to have, and it might be part of any vetting process for facilitation to ask if they couldn't give us a little pro bono help.
Good point. So I think part of this discussion, you know, including whether or not to have a facilitator was one aspect of it. And if I recall our discussions in the, you know, maybe it was a meeting or two ago, we were going to defer on that decision until we decided what the strategic planning session should look like, right? And whether or not we do in fact need a facilitator. So for the folks who, you know, suggested having a strategic planning session, what did you really have in mind for structure?
I have a question about that, Onana, and maybe Bill as well. Is it possible to start the conversation around strategic planning in a pig type format. That is to say, could everybody, for example, I'm making this up, this may be a terrible idea, I'm sure Maka'ala will let me know if it is. Could everybody be asked, every one of us, be asked to submit a list of, or paragraph that projected, what did you see as the key possibilities for what the council might be doing 3 years from now? Again, I'm making this up. And then that list would be shared among us, and that would format the beginnings of the conversation. I don't know how to do that with the formality of an agenda and posting and all of that. It's not to say that we wouldn't want the public input in the strategic planning process, but to begin it, to frame it, to focus the discussion, could we do it in a pig style format? I don't even know if that makes sense as a question or not. Do you know where I'm going on this?
I think I do. I think that's a good, probably a good suggestion to have, kind of the free flow of ideas. First up, Bill, are there any limits on what we can create a pig for? Because if this is the route we're gonna go, Robin, what I'll do in December is add an agenda item to create the pig. We can't do that today, but we can do it in December. And so Bill, yeah, are there any restrictions on creating a pig for the purpose of discussing, potential strategic planning for the council?
No, I don't see any. Just as long as we go through the process of establishing the pig.
Okay.
It's a legitimate issue.
Okay.
Are there
So
limits to the number of people that can be in the pig? Could it be everybody on the council?
less than quorum.
Less than quorum.
I believe so, right?
Yes.
So
Well, that
I
might be-
actually, Robin, I actually think that's a really good idea because I
Say
think
that again, Maka'ala. Say that again.
you had a really good idea. Mark this day down. I actually think that my thoughts around strategic planning for the Environmental Council will include some need for outside information and ideas and potentials and creative notions that, and frankly, are changing hour by hour as the state budget comes clearer. And I want to be able to have those kinds of discussions that you can have more easily in a pig, where we can say, I need to know more about that, and then include that person. It feels right now to me so fluid, and so in my own mind, I'm structuring the potential discussion of a strategic plan as to, within the framework of what the council has as responsibility and what we want to do and how we would approach that, and whether or not we want to prioritize some certain things. And then as a whole other thing, how the council functions, period. And where the council functions, period. And the future of OEQC. There's a larger elephant in the room here right now.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's no way we could do this without having input from other people in the community, selected people as well as anybody, any public. But I think to start off a planning process, to come up with the key questions that we want answered, should be a piggish type conversation. And then if we could frame the questions, we would then have a better idea of how to get the answers. To your point, Onana, whether we need a facilitator, when do we bring the public in? But I think the initial conversation should just be us.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, and the PIG will allow for that, and PIG also allows for non-council members to participate, right? So, okay, why don't we're going to do two things in relation to this strategic discussion, this strategic planning discussion. One is I'm going to agendize action on creating a PIG for the December meeting. And 2 is to assign more homework to the council. You know, by the end of, why don't we just give the same deadline, end of day Thursday, or maybe, you know, close of business Friday, in addition to submitting your additional agencies that you want included for the annual report. If you have specific ideas on, you know, strategic planning, or actually maybe not, because I'm trying to think of who will be the receptacle for that information. We don't yet have a, okay, scratch that. You just have one homework assignment. We'll talk about, maybe think about it further. Maybe just think about it, and we can discuss it, you know, verbally at our meeting in December instead of submitting it by the end of day Thursday.
Yeah, I think the question go ahead, Steph, sorry.
No, I want to reiterate something I think, Robin, that you shared in, I think there's tremendous value around strategic planning. I would want us, for the sake of our time and impact, to think really clearly about the purpose of this strategic plan. Everything is changing almost on a weekly basis. And I see the Nature Conservancy going through this right now as we look ahead at our strategic planning, and needing to be really realistic about the value of multi-year strategic plans right now. And so agree that these are super important conversations for us as a council, given everything that's so unknown in our future, but also I would want us to be very clear-eyed, recognizing how much is unknown. And so again, being clear about what we're after with this strategic plan, and being clear about what we're likely not going to get out of the strategic plan.
Those are really good points, Steph. Thanks for raising them.
That's great thinking, Steph. I think, you know, the question to Onana's homework that we won't submit to anybody, but just, you know, think about when you have your first drink of the evening, or maybe the second one, it's better, is, or yeah, Makal, you and I, but maybe the question to ask yourself is, what roles do you see the EC playing in the next 12 months? I mean, that's one way to think about strategic planning. It's a limited time frame. It's not, what are we doing 5 years from now? You're all right. That's going to be a real challenge. But what role, I mean, given the legislative, the statutory responsibilities that we have, what roles do you see the EC playing? I mean, Roy was really thoughtful in posing some of those as questions that we couldn't use in the annual report SurveyMonkey. And so maybe it's each of us thinking about what roles do we see the EC playing? And I wouldn't think about that in the context of what we can't do quite yet in terms of not having staff, not having budget. Let's begin in the strategic planning processes that I've participated in is a little more free thinking on what roles would we like the EC to play in the next 12 months. And again, just think about that for yourself.
Yeah, I think for myself too, one of the quickest and dirtiest ways I approach this stuff, at least in my own mind, is just do a SWOT. And frankly, a SWOT is a scary thing right now. I think we should also consider the threats, you know.
Great thoughts, everyone. Okay, so we have essentially 2 homework assignments, but only one that's due. Again, reiterating is by end of day Thursday is sending in your additional agencies that you want included on the SurveyMonkey, and then thinking about for our discussion in December. I like, Robin, that you limited it to time within the next 12 months, because I think, you know, it is difficult to think what happens in 5 years. Some of us may not be on the council in the next 5 years. So what do we want that to look like, you know, within the next 12 months? You know, are we, you know, taking a more active role with the legislature? You know, are we just really going to stick to, you know, what it says in our statute or whatnot? So I think that's a really good starting point and jumping off for this discussion. And then we'll also, you know, further discuss creating a PIG.
Well, now, just adding to that, I think the other really important thing, we all know it, but to keep in mind, because this could change things significantly, is we don't have a full-time director right now, right? And whoever that person is going to play a huge role in the direction of this council. And so recommend that we just keep that top of mind too in these discussions. And so possibly thinking about where we feel like we can make the most impact right now. It's not to say we can't do stuff, but really what can we do?
Right, really good point of focus. All right, does anybody else have anything to add to that discussion? I think that was really good. I think we're getting closer at figuring out kind of what we want to see, even though it's not fully formed just yet for strategic planning. All right, if there isn't anything else, I just had, again, reiterating, our next meeting is on Tuesday, December 1st. Looks like for the most part, all committee meetings will be at on the same day. I'll say it one more time. On your report, it's going to be scheduled from 9 to 10 a.m. on December 1st. Then we have ledge from 10 to 11:30 and exemptions from 11:30 to 1 p.m. and our regular council meeting from 1 to 3:30 p.m. I had one more question, maybe for Keith or Bill. I just wanted to know, I believe that I thought the emergency or the emergency orders extending, virtual meetings for boards and commissions expires at the end of, I thought it was the end of October, but maybe it's end of November. And I had heard, and I don't know if I heard correctly, but that somebody, maybe it was OIP, was introducing a bill to extend, virtual meetings into 2021. I just kind of wanted to know if there was any status update on that.
I thought we got something from DOH that said it was all up to the end of the year.
Oh, we did? Okay.
But maybe I imagined it.
I'll go check my emails. I wasn't sure if there was anything else.
Well, the bill from OIP would make it permanent.
The bill would make it? Okay. And I haven't looked at it yet, so I'm just, you saw that bill though?
Yeah, it would make it permanent, but it would require that there be at least one location in person.
Okay. That's good to know. Thank you.
I have not heard anything one way or the other.
Okay.
I mean, every meeting I go to is all virtual. And I
Yeah.
don't see that ending anytime soon, even to the next year. Like I said, I think
Right.
even the legislative session will be virtual again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
And if we have no budget, how are we going to fly?
No, very true. And that's why I
Our
suspect.
brooms.
What is that?
I was answering Maka Allen. You wanted to know
What did
how we're going to fly. I said on our brooms.
That only works for you and me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. I know there was previous discussion of DOH having, like 1 million Hawaiian miles, but I know there were problems with, tapping into redeeming the miles. So I don't know if that ever got figured out. But in any event, I was just curious if folks had heard anything, because I do want to make sure that we do have the ability to continue meeting virtually, because I don't see, in-person meetings coming back anytime soon. So if anybody hears anything about that, maybe let me know, or maybe we can just, if it's a legislative thing, Robin, maybe that's something we can add to your list to check into that OIP bill, just so we're keeping tabs on it, and what that would, mean for us meeting going forward. So, okay, well, opening it up to public forum, is there anything else, any other announcements? I'll start just with something Mahina and I did, what was it, 2 weeks ago? We were asked by, Denise Antolini to do a presentation to her environmental law class on the Environmental Council, and just talk a little bit about what we do. And they wanted us to, talk a little bit about just the stuff that came before the council rulemaking, and, briefly touching on, procedurally the appeal. So it was an interesting class. It went by really quick. And we did, try to impress on them that they should apply to serve when they're able to. All right. Anybody have anything else before we end today? We actually had basically a full meeting today, folks. So thanks everybody for hanging in, one of our longer ones.
I just sent the OIP bill to Onauna and copied Bill.
Okay. Thanks, Mary. Appreciate that.
Just a comment on your concerns about having virtual meetings, and unfortunately, the 14th proclamation by the governor only extended it to November 30th.
Okay.
So, yeah, hopefully we get another one out, but I'll try to follow through with that. I'm sure we'll be able to have it on December 1st, so I'm sure
Okay.
there's another extension. But
Yeah.
as of right now, we only go to November 30th, according to Exhibit F as part of the 14th proclamation.
Okay.
Well, we could use the Julian calendar if worse comes to worse.
Yeah.
I'm all for that.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. If you can, if I can more, instead of just monitoring it, if I don't know who's the right person to actively ask that, but I mean, who can we tap into that? Because I think it's important, at least to December, that we be allowed to have virtual meetings. I mean, I guess
Well,
when will we know that it'll be?
My department is actually actively involved with drafting the proclamations as well as admin. So I can just find out when the 15th proclamation will be coming into effect, because I'm sure once it does, they're going to extend it past November 30th to the end of the year. So I'll definitely follow through with that.
Thank you. Yeah, because if not, then maybe we consider moving our meeting to November 30th, our December meeting to November 30th, just because I don't think anybody was planning on getting travel arrangements together for December. So
I mean, the reality is, there's going to be an extension, and there is going to be virtual meetings because, as we talked about earlier, there's not going to be too much inter-island flight.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Thank you. Just wanted to talk to anybody or to kind of get that insight from you folks who are kind of on the inside. So, with that, that's all I have. Does anybody else have anything else? It's been a long day. No? Okay, well, I thank you all so much for your hard work and continued dedication to this. Appreciate it. And I'll be in touch. Don't forget to do your homework. Okay.
Thank you, Onana.
Thank you so much, Onana.
Bye all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Yes.
Happy Thanksgiving.